What's the best example of it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it that you know of? Prince Andrew did a good job of keeping a relatively low public profile for years after his divorce. The work he was assigned to didn't require much TV work. Then, after the Epstein accusations, that interview must have been the most excruciating thing I have ever watched. I imagine he walked away thinking he had done a good job, and yet for everyone that watched it, it was the nail in his coffin. A minister in my hometown died of autoerotic asphyxiation. His congregation didn't even hold a service for him. His family disappeared, and within a week it was like he had never existed. That's kind of sad. Of all the problematic sexual tendencies that pastors and priests are known for having, this seems so harmless. Well, not harmless, I suppose. Harmless to other people at least. Except for whoever finds the body, of course. Scarred for life. The stench makes you choke. Me. I worked at the same company for 10 years and had an excellent reputation. Some wild stuff went down and all the managers except for me had to be replaced. My reputation was fine at that point. Then we hired this crazy guy who was lying and saying strange things a lot, then he was sexually inappropriate with a customer. I reported all of this to my boss. This crazy guy made up even bigger and more compelling lies about me. They believed him. I didn't do anything fireable, but they transferred me to a different location. I was told that I needed to shape up to save my job despite 10 years of maximum raises and promotions and glowing feedback. 2 days later, the guy was fired by HR because a customer reported him for sexual harassment. Nobody said a word to me, no apology, nothing. I quit in January. Fuck Office Depot. That's the last straw. I'm going to continue my apparently many-year-in-progress boycott of Office Depot. But where will you buy whatever it is people buy at Office Depot? American Ninja Warrior winner Drew Drexel. After years of training, competing, and coming up short, he finally won in Season 11 and became just the third person to ever achieve total victory and win the $1 million prize. Months later, he was charged with child sex crimes. The court case is still ongoing, and he could face years in prison and massive fines. And to state the obvious, he will likely never compete again. Truly, not molesting children was the ultimate obstacle. It's always the really easy things that get you. Director of a place I worked sent an employee a dick pic as a long shot. Employee was at a party where she promptly showed other people wondering, WTF just happened. He had access to her phone number, but she had never willingly given it out to the director for any social engagements. Obviously, he went through files and found it and thought it was a good idea. The worst part was that it was a picture of someone else's dick that he was claiming to be his. Anyway, he came in after his weekend and, after a brief HR visit, walked out. Oh, his wife worked there too and had just had a baby. The workplace is like high school, so everyone knew what happened about 2 hours after he was walked out. Marriage and career ended in the speed of sending a text. Small big industry, and the news got around fast about the whole ordeal. At the time, the place I worked at was in CA, and the place that happened was on the East Coast. It wasn't even a former coworker who told me the story, but my new manager who had never even worked at my old place. I then asked a mutual friend, my ex-husband, if the rumors were true. He confirmed as he was right next to the employee who received the text and unfortunately saw it with his own eyes. Edit, how did they know IT wasn't his? The guy was a larger dude, and the pic he sent with a leg shot was someone vastly more fit. How can somebody have low enough social competence to think this would work but high enough social competence to manage to get married and have a director role? I just don't understand what goes through the mind of a dude sending an unsolicited nude. My father grew up believing he was an honest, hardworking, and loyal man. While he was absolutely a hardworking man, finding out when I was 21 that he had another house, woman and child 20 minutes down the street that he went to on his frequent business trips dispelled the notion that he was honest and loyal. In another life, I would conduct a study/write a book/do a documentary on men who have two separate families. Not just men who cheat, but men who have two separate families. Of all the edged up behavior, this fascinates me to no end. I knew a guy whose father, lawyer, had a family a few miles away. Everyone found out after he dropped dead in his office. My wife's college classmate's husband, airline pilot, had a family in another city. I'm sorry about what you went through, and possibly continue to deal with. How do they have the time? This reminds me of that guy who sold his old company truck to a used car dealer and ended up seeing it in the news with some terrorists in the Middle East driving it. Mounted guns and everything on that thing with his business and his name painted on the side. Great advertising. He was forced to close shop after because of the bad rep. Sad when you think about it since he didn't deserve it. But great example. Yep. The dealer had a duty to remove his livery before selling it on. What's funny is that the guy's son was busy trying to remove the decals as he was signing it to be sold, but the dealer told him to stop since it would ruin the paint and that it would be taken care of later. Obviously that didn't happen. There was a social media influencer, don't know her name, who was doing quite well with promoting her fitness wear brand. She was even working on deals with companies like Under Armour and Nike. Can't remember the exact brands, but definitely the heavy hitters. She was set to move into the $1 million income bracket. Until a single post. She showed a picture of her and her family eating tacos with the following caption. "We miss Taco Tuesday, so we're having racial slur for Mexicans that starts with W, Wednesday." Instantly cancelled by pretty much everyone, and rightfully so. Brand deals shut down immediately. Followers left in droves. Pretty much killed her career in a single post. My mom ran a daycare for almost 20+ years. It was her own business that she built up. Not only did I attend it, it was my first real job. And I fell in love with childcare because of it. We were very accommodating, we weren't too strict. Our goal wasn't to get a 3-year-old to read at a 4th grade level, but to give parents what they needed, making sure the kids were safe and well cared for. Helping out along the way with potty training and weaning and such. We had such a long wait list, but still found a way to get the children who really needed it care. My mother sold it to a larger chain daycare when she retired. They made a bunch of changes, made a bunch of promises that kids will be reading, potty trained by 2 to 3, perfect little angels. Every child is different. You know why every child was potty trained by 3? Because if they weren't, they were kicked out. No comfort items at nap time. Because they were making little adults instead of babies. It took about 6 months and the wait list was 0. They were offering incentives to sign your child up. They could bring on workers. I think it downsized, but eventually closed. I believe there was a cheap jewelry company back in the 80s in the UK whose whole shtick was that its stuff was just as good as the high-end stuff but just cheaper. They had a decent chunk of market share and were on their way to being the largest jewelry store in the UK. Then their CEO has a big meeting with the shareholders, and one of them asks how they keep their stuff so cheap, to which the CEO jokingly remarked, "Because our gems are all cheap junk," or something to that effect. That remark got out to the press out of context and it ruined the company within the year, I believe. Edit, found the actual comment. We also do cut glass sherry decanters complete with 6 glasses on a silver-plated tray that your butler can serve you drinks on, all for £4.95. People say, how can you sell this for such a low price? I say, because it's total crap. 6. Also this about another product, cheaper than a prawn sandwich from Marks and Spencer's, but I have to say the sandwich will probably last longer than the earrings. The company was called Ratner Group and is now Signet Group. This all happened in 1992. They lost around $500 million in share valuation basically overnight and had to shut down over 300 stores. They bounced back though, and Signet is now the largest distributor of diamond jewelry in the world. I know this has been said before, but the utterly embarrassing Fox interview between Jesse Waters and an anti-work mod. I'm pretty sure that was the exact picture of a mod most Redditors had in their heads before that interview. No, see, I expected unemployed, not working like 10 hours a week and complaining that's too much. Did you see the head mod who tried to defend them? A 16-year-old radical anarchist who unironically, in his fucking text wall rant goodbye, said he believed that 7 hours of school was a torturous violation to force people through, and that he didn't want to ever have a normal job. My former stepfather. He went from a job that he had for 15+ years, bi-monthly bonuses, 1-hour lunches every day, and 3 days off a week, to smoking meth, hoarding junk to tweak on, and stealing anything he could to get more. Man, I'm sorry you had to have that in your life. He was honestly the best guy before he got into drugs. Knew more about audio setup and electronics in general than anybody Eve ever met. Meth took that all from him, but I can remember when he was a productive and valued member of society, and that's what hurts the most. Seeing a man fall so far from grace, only to never recover. Last I heard, he was living in the closet of his dealer's house. I appreciate that man. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.